Fantasy Rap
with Austin and Ozzy.
Oh, I just love those boys.
Hey everyone, this is Fantasy Rap, and I'm your host Ozzy.
And I'm your co-host Austin.
You can find us on fantasyrap.com. That is fantasywrap.com. Hey everybody, welcome to the Week 14 podcast and videocast. We are going to start out with P's Picks. Hi everybody, welcome to P's Picks. Hi Sutton. How are ya?
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, are you ready to make a pick for us? We've got the Steelers, and we've got... What's that?
Yeah.
You have no idea, do you? That is the New England Patriots. So I will set that down for you, and you go ahead and decide which one we should talk about.
A bunny.
Oh, are we missing the bunny?
Yeah.
Can we do it without the bunny tonight?
Yeah.
Okay.
A bunny.
Yeah, well, you can get your bunny when you're done. You want to pick a team?
You want to put the New England Patriots? Okay. Thank you
right.
very much. Look up and say, see you.
Yeah.
Bye.
And there you saw what P had to say. Sutton chose the New England Patriots. So because we're actually recording this on Thursday as opposed to Friday, we're going to kind of do an overview of New England versus a follow-up like we normally do on Friday. Someone apparently has not had their child yet. And therefore, that child will be born tomorrow morning. Amazing.
Yeah, be a little busy.
Yeah,
getting up at about 5 a.m. to get ready to head over to the hospital. So.
Right. So we've got Sutton this weekend, and Mama is going to be having the new little one. So we'll have to have another pick worked in the next few years.
Yeah, in about a year.
Yeah. So New England. I mean, first of all, this is, when the league probably decided that they were going to have this, they probably figured it was going to be a good game.
Yeah. I don't know.
This is probably the sleeper of the year because
You'll be asleep on the couch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Bailey Zappi is starting for New England. And Mitchell Trubisky is starting for Pittsburgh, and Harris is Harris is questionable, so it's going to be an interesting game in that there aren't a whole lot of people playing. So you look at Bailey Zappi. Bailey Zappi so far this year is 32 of 64 for 299 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So a New England offense that hasn't moved the ball much so far this year. I mean, they've lost 3 games where the opponent has scored 12 points or less.
Well, yeah, that was last week. We talked about a couple days ago with the Chargers where it was
6-0.
Yeah, 6-0.
Yeah, so I mean, and you think about it, and their top receiver as far as the most receptions is Ramondre Stevenson, and he's also their top yardage gainer, and both on the ground, like I said, on the ground and overall, and he'll be out this week. So you've got Zeke Elliott, who has had 24 of 31 pass receptions for 150 yards and no touchdowns, 112 rushes for 429 yards and 2 TDs. Again,
yeah, I mean he's been
better
okay as of late. Tonight really, starting pretty soon here. With this game, obviously Pittsburgh's game plan is going to be to stop Zeke.
Right.
I mean, that's,
and that's
they
where
don't
we
even have to try really that hard with how good Pittsburgh's front line is and their linebackers. So it should be pretty easy to contain this offense. And,
I don't. Yeah, I mean, there's not much of an offense there. I mean, they've got Devontae Parker, who on the year is 22 of 39 for 264 yards and no touchdowns, questionable.
It's just
Juju Smith-Schuster, 25 of 41 for 170 yards and 1 touchdown, questionable.
Yeah, had he been injured? Or was he just like a healthy scratch every week? Because I honestly
I do not know.
But Devontae Parker, that one's kind of sad because you look back at when he was in Miami, I mean, he was a guy that was good for fantasy.
Yeah.
Because he caught a lot of contested jump balls,
Right.
deep passes, and then he was catching touchdowns too. And now he comes to New England, and whether it's the whole, how some people go there and they don't mesh with the Patriots culture and
Right.
all that stuff. So I wonder
And
if it's something.
I don't know if it's. I mean, so really, they've got a couple of other receivers. I mean, I didn't even bother to write them down because their numbers are so. I mean, I wrote down Bailey Zappi only because I know that he's starting tonight, and Malik Cunningham hasn't gotten enough work yet. So Bailey Zappi had the first team snaps. The only real other receiving threat, which is scary, is Hunter Henry, who is 32 of 49 for 313 yards and 3 touchdowns, which, those are not horrible numbers.
Yeah.
But if that's what they've got to work with tonight, it's going to be a sleeper.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
definitely for New England. If you got Pittsburgh's DST, actually, I don't know if there's going to be that many turnovers, really, if it'll just be so much, more of
Yardage
three
or
and
score.
outs,
Well,
but,
and that's,
you
some
get
of the
plenty
leagues.
3 and out. But
Yeah. I mean, one of my leagues, you get 20 points for a shutout.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, you start at 20, and then it drops to like 7 as soon as they score a touchdown. But if you shut someone out, boom.
Yeah.
I mean, you're rewarded. And I'm not against that in a league.
Yeah.
Versus, I mean, there's other stuff that you do, and which is fine with me. What I don't like is when you do both yardage against and points scored, because then it's like double dipping. If you shut a team out and hold them under 150 yards, you shouldn't be getting 30 or 40 points. You really shouldn't.
Yeah.
And at the same point, a team puts up a great week against your defense, and all of a sudden you're negative 20.
Yeah.
Just
crazy.
Yeah, it's in my opinion
much.
for fantasy, it's
much.
just too much variance. So we'll move on to our, and that's really, unfortunately there's not much to say. We would have had
coached her up a little bit before
yeah,
we had her on.
we would have had a
Pick the
little bit more to
Steelers.
talk about with Pittsburgh.
Yep.
But like I said, I'm just, it may not be a very good game. Our picks of the week. So starting with our quarterbacks, they've listed Tua.
I read that wrong. Whoops.
What did you read?
I didn't read Tua right. For some reason, I was just looking down here.
So he chose Tua,
Yep.
even though he's number 1. So he'll probably be right this week.
Yeah.
So Tua, we've got Mahomes, we've got Herbert after a pathetic performance last week. We've got Hurts going against Dallas. We've got Dak going against Philly. and I'm guessing they're basing that on, we saw what happened with the Dallas defense last week against a so-so offensive team. Now they get Philadelphia and that juggernaut.
Yeah.
And the sixth one is Josh Allen. So I went Brock Purdy, mainly because I wanted to steal him before you took him. And if you know anything about me, I rarely choose players that are on a team of mine.
Yep.
I mean, sometimes you have to if you're in enough leagues. But, Purdy, week in, week out, has been putting up, outside of an occasional blip 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Last week was a monster.
Yeah. I mean, 5 touchdowns?
5 total, I believe. Did he have a rushing?
I don't think so. I think he threw for 5, didn't he? Or did he throw for 4?
I thought he only threw for 4.
Maybe he threw for 4.
2 to Debo, 1 to Ayuk. Did he pass 1 to McCaffrey?
I think so, but I don't remember.
Yeah. I don't remember either.
So, I like him even going against Seattle. I mean, you saw what Dak did to Seattle.
Yeah.
And I think while Purdy is not – Purdy has the weapons that Dak does, although I'm a big CeeDee Lamb fan.
Yeah.
I think he's more controlled. He doesn't make the same mistakes that a Dak might. So I think that going up against Seattle, he's going to put up the yards.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, like I said, too, with Dallas's defense, That was kind of a what the heck happened there, you know.
Well, and it seems like Bland is not necessarily such a great cover corner.
Yeah.
He's in the right spot at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
He scored 6 defensive, pick sixes.
Yeah.
Which is great, but they showcased against him, Seattle did last week, and picked on him over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
So, while those pick six stats are huge and he set a record, if that's all you can come away with, that's not a whole lot. I mean, if you can't cover guys the rest of the time.
Yeah, that's kind of thing you got to be able to do both parts of that,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, Purdy, like I said, he was my pick last week.
Right.
And I had him on a dynasty league too, so hopefully they can keep it going. They're this is the middle point of the bird gauntlet right now for San Fran, and they won the first 2. Should probably win this week, but we'll see if the Seattle that showed up against Dallas shows up this week, because then that could be because the San Francisco defense, I mean, they were better last week,
right?
But before their bye, didn't they lose three in a row, I think.
Yeah.
And one was
but they were without
was a PJ Walker led Browns team,
right? But so the other thing is that they played without their left tackle those 3 games.
True.
But, so I mean he's a stud.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean you still got CMC and George Kittle and
all they had to do is not score 17 points.
Yeah.
They scored 17 points each of those 3 weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they don't score 17, they win.
Okay.
If they do score 17, then they're a loss.
Gotcha.
So I'm guessing that they'll probably score quite a few more than 17.
For sure.
So do you have a choice, or did you want to go with Purdy with me?
No, I mean, I like Purdy, but just to be a little different, I think I've only agreed with you maybe once so far this season, but I'm gonna cook with Russ playing the Chargers, who, I mean, granted, New York put up 0, and that's not really a testament of the Chargers defense. That's just a testament of how bad New England is. So
hence that great sleeper tonight.
Yep. And I mean, last week he had 3 picks in my PPR league, the main redraft one. He still ended up with almost 19 points, I believe.
Yeah.
So you take away one of those picks or even 2 of them,
Well, and I would, the one right at the end of the game, I mean, you're trying to make something happen.
Yes.
And, those things happen. It's kind of like a couple weeks ago when I think it was it Miami that had a return, 100 and some yard return right at the end against Josh Allen.
Yeah.
You're trying to make something happen. Mm-hmm. And every once in a while, it doesn't work right. So
you make it happen, but it's the other way.
Right. So
yeah.
I mean, that could have easily been at least 1 fewer picks.
True. Yeah. I mean, last week it was kind of weird. I was, playing against Cortland Sutton, and he had that crazy, beautiful, really touchdown, kind of, a little toe drag or tap out of the side of the end zone there. So, I mean, him and Russ have a good connection. All Cortland Sutton really seems to do is score touchdowns.
Yeah.
Jerry Jeudy was getting a little involved down the field yet too, and Javonte Williams has been kind of coming along as well. And they still have P. Ryan and McLaughlin, so I think he's got a lot of options, and the matchup's good. This could be a potentially, if whatever's going on with Justin Herbert, because he looked really bad last week.
Well, he's listed as number 3, which is, and
it's still, I think that's still just the residual.
But isn't that part weather? Wasn't it a lousy weather game?
Oh, in New England, it was like windy and snowy a little bit.
I mean,
cold. And,
I'll give some of it to that because it's not necessarily the New England defense, because they haven't done a lot this year.
Yeah.
So
I'll go Russell, like the matchup, and I mean they've been, like I said, for the last couple of weeks now, Denver's been playing a lot better.
They have. I mean, until their streak was broken this past week, they had been on fire. So it looked as if everything was going exactly the way it should, and then they just couldn't quite get it done.
Yep.
Couldn't put the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
Moving to our running backs, we've got, it's amazing how many times CMC is, leads this list.
I think even on his bye week, they might as well just throw him at one.
I think they did, didn't they? Followed by Moss, followed by, well, of course, Pacheco. We've joked
So you
about
got
this.
CMC at 1 and Pacheco at 3.
Yeah, it's a lock.
what.
It's a lock. And Pacheco has a decent game here and a decent game there, and nothing that stands out like that I would continue to put him there.
Yeah.
But they must, it's the same with Mahomes at 2. Mahomes is always in the top 3, but he's rarely performed as a top 3 quarterback at all this season.
Yeah, like I said, I've got the other Dynasty League I'm in, that's the one that the playoffs started, and I've got Mahomes, and then I believe I got Purdy as my Superflex quarterback. I got Stafford on my bench, and the thing that stinks with Stafford is they're playing Baltimore, and Baltimore's the best fantasy, defense in the league in regards to fantasy,
Yeah, but you got to be shaking your head because, I've done that before. You get to the playoffs and you start overthinking it, and then all of a sudden the guy that you drafted in the second round or whatever, or wherever you got him, plays like he should be playing, and you end up losing, and you go, how stupid was I for not playing the guy that I drafted to be that guy?
Yep.
So, and I'm not going to tell you how to do it. Like I said, I've done it before, and I've shaken my head at myself, going, "You know better than that." So,
well, and it's Mahomes. I mean, like I said, as kind of as mediocre as he's been, you just have to, because even with that crappy wide receiver room they have there, that for whatever reason they didn't do anything to help. Before trade deadline and everything. Yeah. He can still get it done with those options.
Well, and I read an article. They keep on talking about MVS. Every week MVS drops a long potential touchdown, and there's one guy predicting that this is the week when he's not going to drop that touchdown. No. Now, that's not me. My buddy in KC, who's a listener. He said, he texted me and he goes, "You were right about MVS." I said, the Packers have nothing. The Packers have first and second round player. Actually, at the time, it was pretty much all first round guys. I think, no, we hadn't traded Rodgers yet.
No.
So we had all the picks that we had made, plus we had Cobb and we had Lazard, and that was pretty much it. And we still had Rodgers, and MVS was allowed to go find a contract somewhere else. And my buddy contacts me and he goes, "So what about this MVS guy?" I said, "We have nothing for wide receivers, and we let him go.
Yeah.
That should tell you something."
Yep.
And I mean, he's probably a great guy and tries his hardest. I'm not picking on him for that. It just hasn't come to fruition, is what I'm saying. So I feel badly for him, and I don't know that I feel so badly for Kansas City because Kansas City's done enough winning for a while.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think a lot of people would be like, MVS is a perfect fit.
Yeah.
So after Pacheco, we've got Bijan Robinson, we've got Kyron Williams, and we've got Austin Eckler back from his poo-poo game.
Yep.
And I went with Devon Achane. Achane. Versus Tennessee. He was back to his, shall we call it, his old self last week, which was surprising.
Yeah, rookie.
Well, but yes, I know what you mean. Breaking everything off and scoring a couple touchdowns, and then he came back and he got injured right away and had another week or two off, and then came back and exploded again.
Yeah.
So which is we said early on to trade away Mostert if you had him, because something would happen. Well, that's something that happened was Devon Achane.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like the pick. And against Tennessee, who, again, we talked about, the process with Zach Moss last week was right, but I don't think he had that great of a game.
Right. He did.
But Tennessee hasn't been, the run stopping defense that you
That they
remember
used to
from
be,
the
right.
previous, couple seasons. So, and he's same thing. He's just one of those guys that it just takes one cut and he's just gone.
Yeah.
And they get so, that offense, they get so tricky and kind of, they run, design plays for certain guys, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
When you've got the
Waddle and
fastest man
Tyreek
on the field.
Yeah, it seems like Waddle and Tyreek always have some sort of end around jet sweep type thing, which with those guys, I mean, you can create so much disturbance with the defense by having a Tyreek Hill go through the backfield that you have no idea. And then all of a sudden there goes Achane out the other side and you're like, how did that happen? And then he's gone.
Yep. So, that true breakout, one touch, could get you an 80-yard touchdown.
Right.
That's, So I'm going with Joe Mixon versus Indianapolis, who, Derrick Henry before getting, the concussion or non-concussion, head injury at the time, and shoulder, I think, as well, they had said. But he put up 2 touchdowns, and I think he was somewhere in the 70, 80-yard range. And then Tajay Spears also had like 50 yards rushing.
Right.
So, if that had all been to Henry, that's a really, really good game. Mixon, I think he had 2 touchdowns this last week.
He did.
He's been playing, or fantasy-wise, been playing a lot better these last couple of weeks because he was still like a, third round, pick this year for fantasy, which if Burrow had been truly healthy all year, probably would have been a pretty decent bargain, actually.
Yeah.
But, you're finding you're reaping the reward of taking him there these last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
so.
Browning has really seemed to pick it up a little bit, which does allow. I mean, you had Higgins back, you had Boyd out there throwing interceptions, you had Jamar Chase throwing negative passes, and we talked about that. But I mean, you've got the weapons, and the interesting thing is, are you worried at all about Chase Brown taking some of his carries away?
I mean,
he had like 30, 40, 50 yards rushing.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it might kind of turn into a little bit of as I had mentioned just before, Derrick Henry and Tajay Spears, where, Mixon will get the, the goal line and, all the runs or, what have you. I mean, he's, I don't know if they truly had expected to have him back this season, because I think it was pretty late, or at least into like almost even training camp before they truly brought him back. There was some discussions about letting him either walk or whatever they were going to do if they were.
Well, wasn't Chase Brown injured much of the year?
Yeah, they had him, and then they've got another guy in the backfield. I can't remember. Travion Williams, I think, who has done absolutely nothing in his career. So, I mean, I'm not.
I just wonder,
they probably cut into it a little bit,
right?
Like
I mean, at some point,
thing,
because I think that Mixon signed a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
So at that point, do you start looking at a player who might be the bell cow next year?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, they could. This would be a good game for it because Indy's run defense is not that good.
Right. Hopefully, both of them do something. I was trying to get him in on waivers and didn't. So, moving on to our wide receivers, we've got Tyreek, who always seems to be at the top, also, followed by CeeDee Lamb, DJ Moore in the top 6, Keenan McCardle-Allen. I'm going to keep calling him that probably for the rest of the year.
Yep.
Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown. And I was surprised that Mike Evans wasn't on there.
Yeah, especially with DJ Moore. I mean, I think they have a really good matchup this week. I can't recall who it is, but I was looking at Justin Fields even for, start of the week.
Yeah,
but
I picked up Kmet in one of my leagues because
they have a really good. Just for the life of me, I cannot remember. But I mean, Who knows? Fields and DJ Moore they had that gigantic week quite a few weeks back, both of them, so maybe with the matchup, and that's why they got DJ Moore at 3, but
maybe
that's,
But I mean, Evans went off for a long one last week, and
like 75 yards,
Yeah.
or 76,
I mean,
something like that. Yeah,
the guy just keeps on doing it. Atlanta, while they seem like they're getting better, I don't know if that I trust them that much.
yeah, not their defense.
I mean,
but yeah.
just them as a team
Yeah, as a team.
overall.
Yeah, for sure.
So if they're down, Evans might lose some looks because they'll start running the ball more. But
Yeah, he's usually good for at least a couple those deep shots.
Right.
I think it'd be interesting to look back over the last 2 years how many deep bomb touchdowns where he's open that he's just dropped. He seems to do that at least 3 times a season where he's truly just, there's nobody around him.
so a
And
quarter
he
of the
just
time that MVS does.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, the secret to MVS is he's got to be in triple coverage. That was that was the way it worked. Because Rodgers would sling it, and you're like, "What are you doing?" Somehow MVS would come down.
And
with
don't
it.
get me wrong, I agree that the pass to him was definitely pass interference, no doubt about it. Questions as to whether or not we would have gotten there with the penalty that was called before that wasn't a penalty, etc.
I think with the. We were talking about it last night or I was talking about it with my buddy BJ because he helped come over and move a big file cabinet for us, which we figured out how to get the drawers out of.
Oh, okay.
So it was a lot later. Sorry, little segue. I just remember how much of a pain in the ass it was to get that sucker up the stairs. But anyways, him and I were talking, and while the hit that Owens put on Mahomes as he was going out of bounds. Technically a legal hit, but that's kind of one of those like unwritten rules that he's going. He's going out of bounds. It's just saying it's one of those, especially
it's like
because
I said
he's a quarterback and it's Patrick Mahomes. It's an unwritten rule. He's going out. Don't hit him. But
if you are going at the sidelines at a decent angle, I would agree. A buddy of mine said he went over there. He was like at a 45-degree angle. I said he was probably at a 15 or 20-degry angle, which meant he was going along the sidelines trying to get as much yardage as he could. At that point, am I looking for you to kill him? No. But you know what? He's a running back at the time or a wide receiver. He's a runner.
That's what I'm saying. It's a legal hit.
Yeah, and you say, you know what? You are trying to get extra yardage by making us back off. I'm going to smack you, and you're going to get hit, and you're going to feel it, and you're going to think about it differently the next time.
Yeah,
that's why they do it.
Like I said, it was legal hit. I get why. Obviously, I would have done the same thing in Owen's situation.
And Mahomes said it was a legal hit.
Yeah. So but like I said, I think it's just one of those kind of, like I said, unwritten. Yes, he's technically he's a runner, but he's still
both feet were in bounds. You know what? Make that something that the upstairs can review, or back in New York or whatever, with their quick review and say, yes, both feet were in bounds. It is in no way, and have them overturn that because it was a horrible call.
So as a result of that, I think that's why they. On that DPI, I think it was a makeup call.
Well, and from what I read from the ref was he did not feel that it was enough of a modification to what MVS was doing to impact the play.
Okay.
Because once he got up and over him, he knocked the ball away.
Yeah.
Was he draped all over him? Yes.
Yeah.
But and we could talk about it at length, and did we already talk about it at length?
I don't know if we did at all.
The whole idea of all those penalties in the last minute and 15 seconds of the game never should have happened.
Yeah.
There were so many bad calls. I could count 5 or 6 bad calls, 3 each way, that, shouldn't have been made.
Yeah.
And it would have completely changed the outcome of the game.
Well, that and momentum. What you were talking just the other day about the game you were watching,
Took
can't
about
remember.
it
there was-
took 5 minutes or so. Oh, it was the I'm trying to remember if it was the Cincinnati game. It was
that does sound right. You're talking about that.
there was the
Yep.
placement of a third down.
Mm-hmm.
So the ball they declared the runner stepped out of bounds about 2 yards short of the first down, and instead of giving him the ball there, they went to and I don't remember if initially they called him out of bounds. So I don't know if they changed their minds on the field and then challenged it because it was under 2 minutes in the quarter.
Yeah.
Or is it in half? Do they do it at the end of each half?
I believe so, yeah.
So, they were looking at it and they ended up moving the ball up. Granted, it had ended up being like 4 or 6 inches away. It was at the end of the game because they were trying to ice it or get into field goal range to win. And, you're sitting there and you're going, it's still third down in 1.5 or third down in 6 inches, unless you are Philadelphia with the brotherly shove. Just, you wasted, the momentum was gone. Everything, it was just a mess. It was stupid in my mind.
Yep. Yeah. So killing momentum like that is always tough. So
yep.
Yeah. So back, Mike Evans for you. He was carrying my team, and then I traded him day before the trade deadline. For David Montgomery, but so I've got the worst matchup for wide receivers, but I'm going to go Nico Collins against the Jets. I just think as a whole, that team just gets beat down and that defense gets wore out, because
why do you think it's the worst matchup?
Well, I mean, Yahoo, the one that I look at, it's just the worst because,
I'm not
Sauce.
I'm not impressed with Sauce.
I get that, but that's just, like I said, their ranking. It's not a great matchup for wide receiver.
They haven't given up a lot, but
is good.
But Sauce over the last few weeks has looked, they were like, oh, he's otherworldly. No, I still would put a healthy Jair against him any day.
Yeah.
I think that Nico Collins, I think that C.J. Stroud being one of the best, most accurate quarterbacks, young quarterbacks out there, and I'm going to give him a shout out because he leads the league in passing yardage as a rookie. I like it. I mean, he's got to go somewhere, and without
Tank Dell with the
you're
surgery,
going to have Noah Brown back. From the injury, he didn't do much last week.
Yeah, you got Robert Woods in the slot. Dalton Schultz he could also get back into, because I think against the Jets, tight end is like one of the better matchups.
Right.
That you can exploit on that defense. So Schultz could have a good game, but Nico, he was like they said like at halftime or something like that, he was on pace for just a ridiculous just a ridiculous amount of yards.
You mean like the Tyreek Hill game a couple years ago?
Yeah. Well, I always think back like the Christmas Alvin Kamara a couple years ago where he scored, was it 6 touchdowns? Yeah, that one was insane.
Yeah, I was thinking where Tyreek had like 220 yards and 3 touchdowns at halftime.
Yeah, I remember that.
I was playing against him.
So, like I said, Nico, big, fast, good hands, and him and Stroud do have a connection. So I think with the absence of Tank Dell is going to force the ball Nico's way a little more. I
think so. And like I said, I don't disagree that the Jets have a good defense. I'm just not seeing as much out of Sauce Gardner as we saw last year. And a little bit the beginning of this year, I think there's hype behind him, and lately it's more hype than actual output.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I wouldn't disagree with you on that. Moving on to our tight ends, we've got Kelsey, Laporta, and we'll get back to Laporta in a second. Kittle, Taysom Hill, Cole Kmet, and Hawkinson. So we were talking about a dynasty league that the two of us are in, as well as Isaac, and you've got a taxi squad. So your taxi squad, you can have players who have had and we're changing it after this year because the 2 years was intended to be they could have 1 full year or a year in, and you could keep them on for the second year. It's actually set right now that they can have 2 years, so they can be in their third year, and that was never the intention.
Yep.
So it'll switch back to a year and a year, so they could be overall 2 years. But someone has, and you've got 4 spots, and they have to be set before the season starts, and there's no taking a guy off and adding a new guy on, or like taxi squad or the practice squad where you can bring them up and put them back down. Once someone comes off that taxi squad, they're on your roster / bench for the entirety of the season unless you drop them.
Yep.
So one of the guys drafted Laporta, or I don't know if he was even drafted.
Oh, I'm sure he was probably drafted.
Well, we only do 3 rounds, remember? So top 30, he might have been.
Yeah, because I mean, it was him and Kincaid were like the top. Well, I think Mayer from Vegas was like the highest rated.
And that guy from Georgia,
Washington.
Yeah,
he's just big.
I know, but everyone, he got hype, and he's going up lists and everything.
Yeah.
I don't know where he ended up, and Musgrave, I think was probably drafted. I ended up picking up Tucker Kraft.
Yep. But I'm sure Laporta. I'm pretty sure like if any 2 tight ends got drafted in the rookie, it was going to be Kincaid and Laporta.
So he would have been drafted, and the guy put up 20 something last week, I think, because it's PPR.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been putting up great numbers. I mean, I think he's probably in the top 3.
I think he's on pace to break the rookie receiving yards
for a tight end,
maybe even touchdowns for a tight end.
Okay.
So
he remains on their taxi squad. Now, this is not a team that is losing. I mean, they're not going to be in the toilet bowl. They're going to be in the playoffs. And yet he's kept Laporta on his taxi squad. I don't I mean, it's only my second year playing Dynasty, so maybe he thinks there's an advantage to that. I don't know what that might be, because you've been losing points on a weekly basis by not playing him.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
Don't know. So, once again, I am going to go with someone on my team. I'm going to go with Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah.
Every time he plays, he's going against Kansas City, who gives up quite a few points to tight ends. He seems to be one of Josh Allen's favorite receivers right now. And that being said, he gets as many or more targets than Diggs usually does, and then Gabe Davis has been getting.
Yeah, I think Diggs and Kincaid are the 2 consistent ones, whereas, like we've talked about, my kind of distaste for Gabe Davis, because he's either, he's got 1 week where he's got 2 touchdowns and 200 yards, and then the rest is like 40 yards, maybe a touchdown.
Right.
So if you get lucky, and Kincaid's been very, pretty consistent, and, all it took was the Dawson Knox injury for them to finally unleash him. Which didn't make any sense, because you know who the better receiver is between those 2. And nothing against Dawson Knox, because he's been a value to the team. But Kincaid is a far better receiver, route runner, etc. For sure, yeah. So, and against KC, the KC Bills games usually, are pretty entertaining. Hopefully it can be again, because that's obviously there's probably a lot of people there glad to have their Bills players back. I know I am with Diggs, from the bye, but yeah.
Although at the same time, I'm sitting here thinking the Packers have a third-round draft pick from us trading away Rasul Douglas, and the more losses they can take, the higher our pick becomes in the third round.
True. That's true.
And the funny thing is, we trade away Rasul Douglas, who is the everything, he was the glue that held that secondary together, supposedly. And they're still without Jair. They're still without Stokes. They just got back Savage. And that defensive backfield looks pretty darn amazing.
Yeah.
And I didn't, if you would have asked me 4 weeks ago, I would have said, we're headed to a great first round, second round, third round pick.
Yeah.
But, they keep on playing well, which is encouraging because, as a Packer fan, that's something you wanted to see. You wanted to see improvement.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. Yeah, I totally agree. Kincaid, he's the, kind of field stretcher at the tight end position. And, him and, Josh Allen loves him. So, definitely should be in line for a good week. I am going to go with Jake Ferguson, former Wisconsin, against Philly.
That was my other choice. I was going, who am I going to pick?
But, he had a good week last week, shutting up Jamal Adams.
Yeah. In a big way.
Yep. So, when him and Dak start clicking, it's good. I think, obviously CeeDee Lamb's just constantly always open. So it feels
even
like
when he's
there
not
are games
open,
where,
he makes those catches.
But there are games where Ferguson can kind of disappear. But, Philly, again, another team, that was Cincy, right? This last week that they were struggling. No.
Since he just played against...
Jeez, why can't I? Wow.
Since he just played Jacksonville.
Correct. Yes. But whoever Philly, what it was last, I can't remember what the matchup was last week, but came down to the wire. That was Kansas City, Philly, Kansas, wasn't it? No.
Green Bay, Kansas City.
Wow.
I can't help.
We're having another kid in the morning. I'm all over the place. So
San Fran.
There we go. Let up a lot of big games too. Debo and them.
It didn't come down to much of anything, did it?
Yeah. So, Fergie's just, like I said, he's a good security blanket for Dak. And when they get clicking, Dak looks for him almost first, it feels like. So,
if not first, he's definitely second.
Yeah.
So. Very, very
an exploitable
popular
Philly defense. So,
very popular guy on that offense.
Yeah.
So moving on to our love 'em, flip 'em, leave 'em. Throwing out some tight ends, and I don't know if we're at a point where you can't trade anyone anyway.
Yeah.
More than likely you're almost set. You're not going to be able to. More than likely you don't have more than one, unless coming back from a bye.
Yeah.
Or on a bye. But I'm going Cole Kmet, Taysom Hill, and Dalton Kincaid.
Well, you're loving Kincaid.
I think I'm loving Kincaid.
Pretty easy for me.
And I prefer, like we've said before, I prefer a guy who, middle of the road.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get you the 8 points, maybe a few more, maybe a couple less, but he's not going to be a Taysom Hill. And even Cole Kmet can disappear for weeks on end, depending upon whether or not they're letting Fields run like he. We saw the last stretch of last season where they were saying,
multiple 2 touchdown weeks.
Right. Run the ball, Fields, and then that linebacker has it, or the safety has a decision to make. And you're not going to let Fields run. You're going to take the chance that Kmet can't catch the ball, doesn't catch the ball. You got someone helping out behind, or he just doesn't pick up the yards that Fields would have.
Yeah.
So you give that up. So, I would... I don't know what value Taysom Hill has, because again, 1 point, 21 points.
Yeah,
he can be a huge help.
Yeah, that would be the selling point. Is look at the spike weeks. He can go for 30 fantasy points. Doesn't happen that often, but obviously you don't throw that in your pitch.
Right.
But that would be look at the ceiling.
Right. His ceiling is much higher than the other two.
And you throw in, he throws the ball. He also runs the ball, takes snaps. He's in at the goal line.
Yeah.
They've got Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams, and who was in at the goal line quite a few times last week.
Yeah.
Taysom Hill.
It's not Jamal Williams who scored 17 touchdowns doing it the year before.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that would be the pitch on Taysom is, just look at his usage and the team loves him, and yeah. So and then Kmet, just too many
down
what
weeks.
the heck happened, where did you even play, kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, it's kind of like K. Dotton last week.
Oh,
You kind of look at the stat book going, gosh, were you in there? Oh yeah, he got a target. Or
he didn't even get a target last week. No. He was in on he ran 61% of all tight end routes for.
But I mean, that's what I do. I'll sit there and I'll look at a guy and I'll go, oh, well, at least he got a target, so he must have been playing.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll watch that game and go back and say, yeah, he was in there a lot, but they didn't even look his way, which is crazy. So and maybe that's I just the way Kmet has been utilized in the past. I just question what sometimes the offensive coordinator and the coach are doing in Chicago such that they're not utilizing, much like, you've learned what makes Justin Fields his best.
Yeah.
It's allowing him to run and then make things happen off of that. Yet they seem to have, cut back on what they're allowing him to do again this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
And now there's talk that he's not, he could possibly not be their quarterback in the future.
They draft if they somehow end up with the first, but I mean they're gonna have to try a lot harder because Carolina's doing a damn good job of securing that. But they're talking, Bears might, they get the number one overall, they're going to be staring there at Caleb Williams, and that's going to be tough choice.
Man,
imagine
adding Marvin Harrison to that team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're either going to be good or you're going to be bad again.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they trade that second first round pick. They take Marvin Harrison at 1, and then they trade that, 5 or 6 or something ish, and you trade that out for a first next year and blah blah blah, so you can accumulate picks. So if you have to, you come back next year and you take a quarterback.
Yeah,
I'm dumbfounded as to giving up already.
You get into an organization like that, and one, you're worried about wins and losses, but you're also worried about if you're going to get fired or not. So,
personally,
it's, just keep the revolving door until finally you hit. I mean, look at Cleveland.
Personally, I think that based on the way they've utilized their assets this year, I would guess I would, if I were a GM, I would be firing the head coach after this year. Mm-hmm. He has, in my mind, and I'm not a GM, I'm not a coach. I think I know something about football, and some people probably would agree with me. Yeah. But I look at the mismanagement of those players, and my buddy down in Illinois, who's a huge Bears fan, season tickets for forever with his parents, and been going for forever. And he said somehow Chicago always seems to screw up quarterbacks. You can bring it. He said if they bring in Caleb Williams, he's going to stink.
Probably.
He's going to be horrible. So then why don't you get tools? And Fields is already worthless in that situation. Yep. He's already been screwed up. So why not get some tools and at least try and do something with more tools?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't get it either. Like I said, it's you've got. I was just talking about that last night too with a buddy. There's all these teams out there that are. There's a handful of teams that are in such a bad quarterback situation because, you look at Vegas. You look at the Jets. Well, obviously you can't predict the Rodgers Achilles, but
Right.
but what have they done so far? Continue to push Zach Wilson out there to get eaten alive by the New York fan base.
Yeah, Tim Boyle got fired.
Tim Boyle got fired. And then they asked Zach Wilson, they were going to start. Zach Wilson is going to start, I saw. But he said he was reluctant to go back.
Supposedly.
I totally understand.
Well,
but
and you and I talked a little bit about this. I mean, the New York media, the New York sports fans are probably the most brutal sports fans in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, you can go to Europe and everything and watch some of the soccer or football that they play over there, and those fans are crazy.
Yeah.
But you want a horrible situation, and I said it. I said Rodgers going. He's kind of a prima donna, and if he isn't playing well and he starts getting booed, what's going to happen? And it doesn't matter who you are there. You could be the best player they could get Tom Brady. And if Tom Brady has a bad game, he's getting booed. It's New York. This is how it is.
I think just because they're Jets fans with the history of Tom Brady, they'd boo him no matter what.
But it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's the Jets or the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, or the Yankees or the Mets.
Too. Like I said, that's another team. The Giants. The Browns now too. There's teams out there.
Wait, they play in New York too?
No, I'm just saying there's teams out there. Even Tennessee. Granted, Will Levis. The first week
looks
has
okay.
popped, and he does. He's been struggling a little bit, but still looks okay. Like there's potential there with Levis, but there's teams out there that, middle of the season. Obviously, New England. Jesus. Keep throwing Mac Jones out there, and you bench him at halftime anyways.
Yeah.
And they did nothing. They just haven't tried to do anything.
So
it just feels like they're like, oh well, we suck. Let's get that draft pick.
So is it your impression that teams should march a guy out there no matter what? I mean, Bryce Young is horrible. Or does Bryce Young have no tool? I mean, Chuba Hubbard looks pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm.
Yet Bryce Young can't throw a pass.
Yeah, that one's tough though too, because Carolina truly. They're.
And now what do they do?
Rough. It's going to be rough in Carolina for years because of.
Imagine.
Well, you look at, like you said, they gave up all those picks.
Yep.
And really the players they gave up were, Stroud. If they would have taken him.
Yeah, and that would be my question. Why didn't they take Stroud?
Yeah, well, I think I saw too they were going to, and then I don't know if it was their GM or owner or somebody else in the organization.
I think it was the towel boy.
Could have been. Said, no, I want Bryce Young, so that happened. But, Carolina gave up essentially, like, if they had kept all those picks too, gave up Jordan Davis, the rookie D lineman. They gave up so many.
DJ Moore?
Yeah, DJ Moore. They gave up good players that were drafted in those picks,
right.
too, in order to, and then they maybe miss. Bryce Young looks bad, but.
And the same thing with Richardson.
45-year-old Adam Thielen out there, and you got Mingo, who's had a couple nice catches and stuff.
Thielen
can't stay on the.
Thielen went from a stud, number 7 overall, through 10 or 11 weeks, and he's horrible. He's 40-something over the last 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah,
is that coaching? Is that? What is going on with some of these organizations is my question. And then, Green Bay takes a guy at 26, I think he was, 26th overall in 2000.
I believe so, yeah.
And, everyone's like, well, why would you take a quarterback? We've got the best quarterback in the world. Well, his play had started going down, so you start planning for the future. Little
drama in the organization.
A lot of drama. I'll never be like Brett Favre was. So you turned right into him. So, and I'm hoping that in 14 years we don't trade Love to the Jets. because that's the way it's headed.
That's been a joke going around is congrats, year X, whatever year, congrats, Jordan Love, you're a New York Jet.
Well, but, Jordan Love looks, and granted, he's been in the league for 3 years. This is his 4th year, and he hasn't played, but they showed some tape, and he looks exactly like Aaron Rodgers throwing that ball. I'm not saying he's going to be Aaron Rodgers. Don't get me wrong. He's got a long ways to go. But I said to my buddy from Illinois, I said, I would love to see that Love is somehow the third coming. And the third coming could mean we've got someone who we can hold on to for 6 or 8 more years who's a top 10 quarterback. I'm not saying he has to be Aaron Rodgers. I'm not saying he had to be Brett Favre before that. I want a guy who, that we aren't going through this fiasco every couple years like so many of the teams do.
Yeah, totally agree.
So,
yeah.
Well, I'll get off of my soapbox. I hope you listen in. Hope you enjoy the talk we had here, discussion that went on.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't know if Austin will be around for Monday night. Tuesday. Oh, you should be back for Tuesday.
We'll see.
I mean, kid's going to be like 3, 4, 5 days old.
Well, it's more to do with the C-section. They usually they keep you a couple more days to monitor because it really is a major surgery. Yeah. So it
Friday,
depends.
Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You should be back by Monday. So, you're saying she might need help with.
Well, I mean, I'll just ship Shelly over there. But,
it'll be taken care of.
But I'm saying when we were with Sutton, we were there for 5 days.
Oh, okay.
So in the hospital for 5 days. So.
Well, you had nowhere else to be. Now you've got a job.
Yeah. Well, yes.
So, hope you enjoy it. I am Ozzy.
And I'm Austin.
Have a great week.
See you later.